Desperate to escape an arranged marriage, Samantha Miller weds a humble ranch hand, James Cooper. But when she learns he's actually the heir to a vast fortune, their marriage of convenience turns into something far more complicated. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from. The morning sun streamed through the lace curtains of Samantha Miller's bedroom, casting delicate patterns across her tear-stained face. At 26, she should have been filled with hope for the future. Instead, she sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection with dread weighing heavy on her heart. "Samantha," her father's voice boomed from downstairs. "Get down here now, we have matters to discuss." She flinched at the sound. Harold Miller might be the most respected landowner in Willow Creek, but behind closed doors, he ruled his household with an iron fist, especially since her mother's death 5 years ago. Taking a deep breath, Samantha smoothed her simple blue dress and made her way downstairs to her father's study. The massive oak desk where he sat seemed to make him even more imposing. "You wanted to see me, Father?" she asked quietly. Harold barely looked up from his paperwork. "I've finalized the details of your marriage to Richard Blackwell. The wedding will be next month." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What?" "But, Father, I barely know him. You know he's the son of my business partner and that he'll bring considerable assets to our family holdings," Harold said sharply. "That's all you need to know. But I don't love him." Harold slammed his hand on the desk. "Love? What nonsense. My father arranged my marriage to your mother, and we did just fine. This isn't about your feelings, girl. This is about securing the future of this family." Tears threatened, but Samantha held them back. Showing weakness in front of her father only made things worse. "Richard will be here for dinner tonight," Harold continued. "You will be pleasant and agreeable. Is that understood?" "Yes, Father," she whispered. "Good. Now go help Martha with the preparations." As she left the study, Samantha's mind raced. Richard Blackwell was 45, nearly 20 years her senior. The 2 times they'd met, his cold eyes had assessed her like she was livestock at auction. The thought of being his wife made her stomach turn. In the kitchen, Martha, their longtime housekeeper, took one look at Samantha's face and wrapped her in a motherly hug. "He told you about the wedding, didn't he?" Martha asked. Samantha nodded, against the older woman's shoulder. "I can't marry Richard, Martha. I just can't." "Oh, my sweet girl." Martha patted her back. "Your father is set on this match. I don't know what options you have." "There has to be something," Samantha said, desperation creeping into her voice. Anything would be better than being Richard Blackwell's wife. Later that afternoon, Samantha escaped to the stables. Riding had always brought her peace, and today she needed it desperately. As she approached her mare's stall, she noticed a man she didn't recognize tending to one of the horses. He was tall with broad shoulders, his skin tanned from working outdoors. When he turned and saw her, she was struck by warm brown eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled. "Miss Miller," he said with a nod, "I'm James Cooper. Your father hired me last week to help with the horses." "Nice to meet you, James," she replied, surprised by her father's decision. "Harold Miller rarely hired new staff." "That's Daisy, isn't it?" James nodded toward her mare. "She's a beauty." "She's my best friend," Samantha said, with the first genuine smile she'd had all day. "The only one who never judges me." James chuckled. "Horses are good that way." He hesitated, then added, "If you don't mind me saying, Miss Miller, you look like you could use a good ride to clear your head." The simple observation, offered with such kindness, nearly broke her composure. "That obvious, huh? I've always been good at reading people," he said, "and horses." As James helped saddle Daisy, Samantha found herself strangely comfortable with this new ranch hand. There was something trustworthy about his steady presence. "Will you be at the big dinner tonight?" she asked as he handed her the reins. A shadow passed over his face. "No, miss, your father made it clear the staff should make themselves scarce when Mr. Blackwell arrives." "Lucky you," she muttered. James studied her face. "Not a fan of Mr. Blackwell." She shouldn't be discussing such matters with an employee, but something about James made her want to confide in him. "My father is forcing me to marry him next month." James's expression darkened. "Without your consent. My consent doesn't matter in my father's world." Samantha swallowed hard. Nothing I want has ever mattered. That's not right, James said. Simply, but the quiet conviction in his voice gave Samantha unexpected comfort. She impulsively asked, "If you could escape a horrible fate, would you?" "Even if it meant leaping into the unknown." James held her gaze steadily. "Sometimes the unknown is the only path to freedom." His words stayed with her as she rode across the rolling pastures of Miller Ranch, the wind in her hair providing temporary escape. But all too soon, she had to return and prepare for dinner with her unwanted fiancé. Richard Blackwell's cold eyes traveled over Samantha throughout dinner, his gaze lingering in ways that made her skin crawl. Next to him, her father beamed with satisfaction, two men who saw her only as a business transaction. "The wedding invitations have already been ordered," Harold announced over dessert. 300 guests, all the important families in the county. "Excellent," Richard nodded. "And I've purchased the Henderson property adjacent to your northern pastures as a wedding gift. The combined acreage will make Miller Blackwell Ranch the largest in the state." They continued discussing her future, as if she weren't even present. Samantha sat silently, her food untouched, feeling increasingly trapped. When Richard reached across the table and took her hand in his clammy grip, it took every ounce of self-control not to pull away. "You'll want for nothing as my wife," he said, his smile never reaching his eyes. "I expect only obedience and loyalty in return." Samantha thought she might be sick. After Richard finally left, her father confronted her in the hallway. "You barely spoke all evening," he snapped. "Is that how I raised you to behave toward your future husband?" "Please don't make me marry him," she begged, hating the tremor in her voice. Harold's face hardened. "The arrangements are made. The contracts are signed. This marriage is happening, Samantha. The sooner you accept that, the easier it will be." She watched him stride away, knowing he would never change his mind. As the walls seemed to close in around her, Samantha made a decision. She wouldn't become Richard Blackwell's possession. That night, she couldn't sleep. Round high. Midnight, she slipped out of the house and headed for the stables, drawn to the peaceful presence of her beloved Daisy. To her surprise, a light was still on in the tack room. James looked up from where he was repairing a saddle. "Miss Miller, everything all right?" The concern in his eyes broke something inside her. Before she knew it, the whole story came pouring out. Her father's controlling ways, the loveless arrangement with Richard, her desperate need to escape. "I have some savings," she finished. "I thought I might saddle Daisy tonight and just go anywhere away from here." James listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he set aside his work and faced her directly. "Running away alone is dangerous, especially for a woman," he said gently. "Your father would hunt you down, and without protection, you'd be vulnerable." "What choice do I have?" Desperation edged her voice. James took a deep breath. "There is one way to legally escape your father's control." "How?" "Marriage," he said simply. "If you were already married to someone else, your father couldn't force this match with Blackwell." Samantha stared at him. "But who would—" She stopped as understanding dawned. "Are you suggesting—" James nodded slowly. "I know it's crazy. We barely know each other. But I'm offering you a way out, Miss Miller. Marry me and your father loses his legal control over you. But why would you do that for me?" His eyes held steady on hers. "Everyone deserves freedom, Miss Miller, and I can't stand by watching someone be forced into something like this." "It would be a marriage in name only," Samantha clarified, her mind racing. "Of course," James agreed. "I have a small cabin on the edge of town. It's nothing like what you're used to, but you'd have your own room, your privacy, and most importantly, your freedom." It was madness, complete madness. And yet, as Samantha looked at James's honest face, she felt the first flicker of hope she'd had in months. "When?" she whispered. "There's a judge in the next county who could do it tomorrow," James said. "If we leave at dawn, we could be back by nightfall as husband and wife." Samantha took a shaky breath. "I'll do it." Judge Parker raised his eyebrows at the unlikely couple standing before him, the well-dressed daughter of Harold, Miller and a weathered ranch hand, but asked no questions as he performed the brief ceremony. Samantha wore her simplest dress, and James had on his one good shirt. Their only witnesses were the judge's wife and secretary. When James slipped a simple gold band on her finger, "It was my mother's," he explained. Samantha felt a strange mix of terror and liberation. "I now pronounce you husband and wife, Judge," Parker declared. And just like that, Samantha Miller became Samantha Cooper. The ride back to Willow Creek was mostly silent, both of them processing the enormity of what they'd done. "Are you all right?" James asked as Miller Ranch came into view. In the distance. "I'm not sure," Samantha admitted, "but I know I couldn't have faced the alternative." "Your father won't take this well," James warned. Samantha's laugh held no humor. "That's the understatement of the year." They agreed James would wait with the wagon while Samantha went inside alone to break the news and gather her essential belongings. The moment she walked through the door, Martha rushed to her. "Where have you been? Your father's been in a rage all day." Before Samantha could answer, Harold's voice thundered from his study. "Is that her? Send her in now." Taking a deep breath, Samantha squared her shoulders and walked in to face her father. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded, face flushed with anger. "I got married today," she said simply, holding up her hand to show the ring. Harold stared at her in disbelief. "What did you say?" "I'm married, father, to James Cooper." "The stable hand?" Harold's voice rose to a roar. "This is a joke." "It's no joke. We were married by Judge Parker this morning. I have the certificate." She placed it on his desk with trembling hands. "I'm moving to James's home tonight." Harold's face went from red to purple. "You stupid, ungrateful girl. Do you have any idea what you've done? The scandal, the contracts with Blackwell? I'm sorry about your business plans, father, but I won't be a pawn in them." Harold slammed his fist down. "This marriage is a sham and I'll have it annulled by tomorrow." "You can try," Samantha said with more confidence than she felt. "But it's legal and binding." "Get out," Harold hissed. "Get out of my house and don't ever come back. You're no daughter of mine." Though his words stung, the overwhelming emotion Samantha felt was relief as she packed her clothes and a few treasured possessions. Martha helped her, tears streaming down the housekeeper's face. "Will you be safe with him?" Martha whispered. "Safer than I would have been with Richard," Samantha assured her, hugging the only mother figure she'd known for years. "James is a good man." James's cabin was indeed small, just 2 rooms with simple furnishings, but it was clean and well kept. True to his word, he gave Samantha the bedroom while he took the sofa. "It's not what you're used to," he said apologetically as she looked around. "It's perfect," she replied, and meant it. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. That night, lying in an unfamiliar bed in her new husband's home, Samantha felt the weight of uncertainty. She had escaped one fate, but had no idea what the future now held. James was essentially a stranger, yet she had tied her life to his. The next morning, they established an awkward routine. James made coffee before heading to work, careful to give Samantha her space. She spent the day making the cabin more livable, grateful for the simple tasks that kept her mind occupied. 3 days into their unusual arrangement, a thunderous knocking rattled the cabin door. Samantha opened it to find Richard Blackwell on the porch, his face a mask of fury. "So it's true," he sneered, looking past her at the humble surroundings. Harold's precious daughter living in squalor with a ranch. "And please leave, Richard," Samantha said firmly, though her heart raced. "I'm married now." "A marriage of convenience to escape your obligations," Richard spat. "Your father told me everything. He's filing for annulment as we speak." "He can file whatever he wants. My marriage is valid." Richard stepped closer, forcing Samantha to back up. "Do you really think I'll let you humiliate me this way? That I'll just walk away after the contracts have been signed?" "That's exactly what you'll do." James's voice came from behind Richard. He stood there, work clothes dusty but his stance powerful. "This is between me and my fiancée," Richard said dismissively. "Ex-fiancée," James corrected. "And now my wife. I suggest you leave our property." The 2 men stared each other down until Richard finally turned away. "This isn't over," he warned as he got into his expensive car. "Not by a long shot." After he left, Samantha's legs gave way and she sank onto a kitchen chair. "Thank you," she whispered. James sat across from her. "We knew they wouldn't give up easily." "I didn't think they'd move this fast." She looked up at him. "James, if my father files for annulment, we'll fight it," he said simply. "I made you a promise, Samantha. I intend to keep it." Something in his steadfast confidence calmed her. Racing thoughts. This strange, hasty union might actually be her salvation. 2 weeks into their marriage, Samantha and James settled into a tentative friendship. She learned to cook simple meals, though her first attempts often made them both laugh. He taught her about caring for the small vegetable garden behind the cabin. In the evenings they talked, careful conversations that gradually revealed their pasts. Samantha told James about growing up under her father's strict control, about losing her mother, about her dreams of someday having her own horse breeding program. James spoke less of his background, mentioning only that he'd grown up on a ranch in Montana and had been working his way through various ranches for the past few years. There was something guarded about him, but Samantha didn't press. After all, their arrangement was temporary, a means to an end. One evening, a fierce storm hit Willow Creek. Thunder shook the small cabin, and rain pounded the roof so hard Samantha feared it might collapse. A particularly loud crash sent her running into the main room, where James was already checking for leaks. "Just a tree branch," he assured her. "The cabin's sturdier than it looks." A flash of lightning illuminated his face, and for a moment, Samantha was struck by how handsome her husband truly was. The thought caught her off guard. The storm knocked out the power, and they sat by candlelight, the howling wind making conversation difficult. When James handed her a blanket, their fingers brushed, sending an unexpected warmth through her. "Thank you," she said, suddenly shy. "Not just for the blanket, for everything." James smiled, the candlelight softening his features. "You're welcome, Samantha." It was the first time he'd used her first name, and she liked how it sounded in his gentle voice. The next morning brought unexpected news. Martha arrived at the cabin soaked from the lingering rain, with urgent information. "Your father collapsed last night," she told Samantha. "The doctor says it was his heart. He's asking for you." Despite everything, Samantha couldn't ignore her father's call. James drove her to the sprawling Miller Ranch, where Dr. Reynolds met them at the door. "It was a mild heart attack," the doctor explained. "He'll recover, but he needs rest and less stress." Harold looked diminished in his large bed, his face gray. When he saw Samantha, something flickered in his eyes. "You came," he said, his voice weaker than she'd ever heard it. "Of course I came." She sat beside him, unsure whether to take his hand. Harold's gaze moved to James, who stood respectfully at the door. "You married my daughter to spite me," he accused, though the words lacked their usual fire. "No, sir," James replied evenly. "I married her to help her." "A noble stable hand," Harold scoffed. "What kind of life can you give her?" Before James could answer, a commotion downstairs interrupted them. Raised voices echoed through the house, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. The bedroom door burst open, and an imposing older man in an expensive suit strode in, followed by 2 flustered staff members. "I came as soon as I heard, Harold," the man said, then stopped short when he saw James. James had gone completely still, his face draining of color. The older man stared at him in shock. "James? My God, is it really you?" "Hello, Father," James said quietly. The room fell silent as Samantha looked between them in confusion. "Father?" she echoed. Harold struggled to sit up. "What's going on here? Who is this man?" The stranger stepped forward, his eyes never leaving. "James. William Cooper, owner of Cooper Ranch." He extended his hand to Samantha. "And apparently your new father-in-law." "That's impossible," Harold sputtered. "James is a ranch hand, a nobody." "James is my son and heir to the largest ranch in Montana," William corrected, "though he's been running from that fact for nearly 3 years now." Samantha turned to James, stunned. "Is this true?" The look of guilt on his face told her everything. Her simple ranch hand husband, the man she'd married, to escape a life of wealth and privilege, was himself the heir to a fortune. "I can explain," James began, but Samantha was already backing toward the door, feeling betrayed and foolish. "You lied to me," she whispered. "No, I just didn't tell you everything." "It's the same thing." Her voice rose despite her father's condition. "I trusted you. I married you thinking you were someone you're not." William Cooper looked between them in confusion. "Harold, you never told me your daughter had married my son." "Because I didn't know who your son was," Harold snapped, then winced, clutching his chest. "Everyone out," Dr. Reynolds ordered. "Mr. Miller needs rest, not drama." Samantha fled the room, needing space to process this shocking revelation. The poor ranch hand she'd impulsively married to escape her father's control was actually James Cooper, heir to the Cooper fortune. Wealth that rivaled or perhaps even exceeded her father's. She had run from one arranged marriage into what now felt like another deception. As she stood on the grand porch of her childhood home, rain beginning to fall again, Samantha wondered if she would ever truly be free to make her own choices. Behind her, she heard James call her name, but she couldn't face him yet. Their marriage, already complicated, had just become infinitely more so. Rain soaked through Samantha's dress as she stood frozen on her father's porch, the revelation about James still echoing in her mind. Her husband, a man she'd known for barely 3 weeks, was not the simple ranch hand she'd believed him to be, but the heir to one of the wealthiest ranching dynasties in the country. "Samantha, please." James's voice came from behind her. "Let me explain." She turned to face him, rain plastering her hair to her face. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me from the start? That you let me believe you were someone you're not?" "I never directly lied to you," James said, reaching for her arm. She pulled away. "A lie by omission is still a lie, James. Or is that even your real name?" "Of course it's my real name." He ran a hand through his wet hair in frustration. "I'm still the same person you've known these past weeks." "No, you're not." Samantha wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold, despite the mild spring rain. "The James I knew was honest and straightforward. That man I could trust. You can still trust me." "How?" she demanded. "Our entire marriage is based on deception." Before James could respond, William Cooper appeared in the doorway, his commanding presence drawing both their attentions. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere drier," he suggested, with the calm authority of a man used to being obeyed. "And more private." Reluctantly, Samantha followed the two men to her father's study. The room felt strange without Harold's domineering presence behind the desk. William closed the door and faced them both. "I gather from what I just witnessed that this marriage was not what it appeared to be." "It's complicated," James said. "Then uncomplicate it," his father replied. Samantha sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "I married your son to escape an arranged marriage my father was forcing on me." William's eyebrows rose. "And you, James, why did you agree to such an arrangement?" James glanced at Samantha, then back to his father. "Because she needed help, and I was in a position to provide it." "How noble," William said dryly. "And did it not occur to you that revealing your true identity might have been relevant? If I'd told her who I really was, she might not have trusted my motives," James defended. "Well, I certainly don't trust them now," Samantha interjected. William studied them both, his shrewd eyes missing nothing. "Regardless of how this union came about, it appears to be legal and binding. The question is, what happens next?" "I don't know," Samantha admitted, the fight draining out of her. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," James said quietly, "but not here. This house isn't good for you, Samantha." Despite her anger, she knew he was right. The walls of Miller Ranch felt more confining than ever. William cleared his throat. "My hotel is just outside town. I'm staying in the penthouse suite. There's a spare bedroom. You're welcome to it, Samantha, while you sort things out." The offer of neutral territory was tempting. "Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Please, call me William." He turned to James. "You, I presume, will return to your cabin." The last word carried a hint of distaste. "Yes," James confirmed, his eyes never leaving Samantha's face. "Unless you'd rather I stayed elsewhere." She saw the concern in his eyes, the genuine worry that touched her despite her anger. "The cabin is your home," she said. "I won't push you out of it." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Reynolds stopped them. "Your father is stable, but asking for you, Samantha." With a sigh, She returned to Harold's bedroom. Her father looked frail against the pillows, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "So," he said when they were alone, "your ranch hand husband is really James Cooper." "I didn't know," she said, sitting beside the bed. "Of course you didn't." Harold's laugh held no humor. "The irony is almost too perfect. I try to arrange a beneficial marriage for you, and you run off with someone who turns out to be an even better match. This isn't about money or status. Father, isn't it?" Harold's eyebrows rose. "Then why did you marry him?" "To escape you," Samantha said bluntly. "To avoid being sold to Richard Blackwell like cattle." Harold flinched. "I was doing what was best for you, for this family." "No, you were doing what was best for you." Samantha stood. "I hope you recover quickly, Father, but when you do, I hope you'll finally understand that my life is my own." As she walked out, Harold called after her, "This changes nothing. You're still my daughter, and I won't let you throw your life away." The penthouse suite at the Grand Hotel was luxurious in a way that made Samantha uncomfortable after her weeks in James's simple cabin. William had given her a spacious bedroom with its own bathroom, then discreetly left her alone to refresh herself after the emotionally draining afternoon. When she emerged, wearing dry clothes Martha had packed for her, she found William on the balcony with a glass of whiskey. "Feel better?" he asked, offering her a seat. "Physically, yes." She accepted the chair, gazing out at the view of Willow Creek spread below them. "I imagine you have questions about my son," William said after a moment. "A few thousand," Samantha admitted. William's smile was surprisingly warm. "James has always been independent, stubborn like his mother." His eyes grew distant. "Elizabeth, my late wife, she never cared for the trappings of wealth. She used to say money was just a tool, not a measure of a person." "She sounds wise." "She was." William swirled his whiskey. "When she died 3 years ago, James took it hard. He'd just finished his business degree, was poised to take over management of part of Cooper Ranch, and then," he sighed, "he disappeared. Left a note saying he needed time, space to figure out who he was apart from the Cooper name." Samantha thought about the quiet, hard-working man she'd come to know. "So he's been hiding all this time." "Not hiding exactly. Working, learning the business from the ground up," he said in his occasional phone calls. "Moving from ranch to ranch, using his skills but not his name." William shook his head. "I respected his journey, even if I didn't fully understand it. How did you find him?" "I didn't. Pure coincidence brought me to Willow Creek. Harold and I have some mutual business interests. When I heard he'd had a heart attack, I came to see if I could help." William's laugh was rueful. "Finding my son was quite the unexpected bonus." Samantha processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the James she knew. "Why didn't he tell me?" "That," William said gently, "is a question only James can answer." Back at the cabin, James paced restlessly. He'd messed everything up. The tentative trust he'd built with Samantha was shattered, and he had no one to blame but himself. A knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find Richard Blackwell standing there, a smug smile on his face. "Cooper," Richard sneered. "Or should I say, Mr. Cooper, heir to the Cooper fortune. What do you want, Blackwell?" "Just a friendly chat." Richard pushed past him into the cabin, looking around with theatrical distaste. My, you really committed to this charade, didn't you? Living like a pauper when you could buy and sell. This whole town. My living arrangements are none of your business," James said coldly. "Neither is my marriage." "Ah, yes. Your marriage." Richard circled the small living room. "Does Samantha know you've been lying to her since the day you met?" "She knows everything now," James said. "So whatever you came here to do, you're too late." Richard's smile didn't waver. "Am I? Harold Miller and I still have contracts signed. The merger of our lands is still beneficial to both parties." "Samantha isn't part of those contracts anymore." "Perhaps." Richard moved closer. "But with your deception exposed, do you really think she'll stay with you? A woman like Samantha needs stability, honesty. I can still offer her that." James fought the urge to throw Richard bodily from the cabin. "Samantha makes her own choices now. We'll see." Richard headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and James, Harold may be down, but he's far from out. Don't underestimate what a father will do to protect his daughter, especially from a liar. After Richard left, James slumped into a chair, worry gnawing at him. He'd started this deception for good reasons, hadn't he? The truth was, when Samantha had first approached him that night in the stables, desperate and frightened, something protective had awakened in him, something he hadn't felt since losing his mother. He hadn't planned to deceive Samantha about his identity. It had just been simpler to continue the role he'd been playing for years, the humble ranch hand, responsible for nothing but his daily tasks. No expectations, no family legacy weighing on his shoulders. But now, seeing the hurt in Samantha's eyes, he realized his simplicity had come at her expense. He needed to make this right, if she would let him. The following morning, Samantha awoke to a knock at her bedroom door. William stood outside, already dressed impeccably. "James is downstairs in the hotel restaurant," he informed her. "He'd like to speak with you if you're willing." Part of her wanted to refuse, but the larger part knew they needed to talk. "Tell him I'll be down in 20 minutes. James was waiting at a corner table, a cup of coffee growing cold in front of him. When he saw her, he stood, his face etched with concern. "You look tired," she said, noting the shadows under his eyes. "I didn't sleep much." He waited for her to sit before taking his own seat again. "Samantha, I'm so sorry. I'm still trying to understand why, James. Why didn't you tell me who you really were?" He took a deep breath. "After my mother died, I felt lost. The Cooper name came with expectations, responsibilities. Everyone wanted something from me. I needed to find out who I was without all that." "I can understand that," Samantha said slowly. "But when we got married, I should have told you then," he acknowledged. "But I was afraid." "Of what?" "That you wouldn't trust my motives, that you'd think I was like your father or Richard, using wealth as control." He met her eyes. "I wasn't trying to trick you, Samantha. I just wanted to help you escape a bad situation." She studied him, searching for deception. "You could have helped me without marrying me. Not legally, I couldn't." James leaned forward. "Your father would have found you, dragged you back. Marriage was the only way to legally sever his control." Samantha sighed, frustrated because she knew he was right. "So where does this leave us? Our marriage was supposed to be temporary, just until I could establish independence." "Is that still what you want?" James asked quietly. The question caught her off. God, what did she want? 3 weeks ago, the answer had been simple: freedom from her father's control. Now, "I don't know," she admitted. "Everything's changed." Not everything. James reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I'm still the same person, Samantha. A ranch hand who knows horses, who likes black coffee and watching sunsets. My bank account doesn't change who I am." Before she could respond, a commotion at the restaurant entrance drew their attention. Richard Blackwell strode in, followed by a thin man in a suit carrying a briefcase. "Ah, the happy couple," Richard said loudly enough for nearby diners to hear. "How convenient to find you both together." "This is a private conversation, Richard," Samantha said firmly. "I'm afraid this can't wait." Richard gestured to the man beside him. "This is Mr. Phelps, my attorney. He has some papers for you." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Cooper, I've been instructed to inform you that your father is contesting the validity of your marriage. He claims you were coerced and that Mr. Cooper misrepresented himself, constituting fraud." "That's ridiculous," James began, but Samantha laid a hand on his arm. "My father is recovering from a heart attack," she said calmly. "I doubt he's instructing anyone to do anything right now. The paperwork was prepared before his unfortunate health event," Richard said smoothly. "As his business partner and your former fiancé, I'm simply carrying out his wishes." Mr. Phelps produced a thick envelope. "These documents require your signature acknowledging receipt of the annulment petition." Samantha made no move to take them. "I'm not signing anything without legal advice. A wise decision," said a new voice. William Cooper approached the table, his mere presence causing the attorney to step back slightly. "Perhaps Mr. Phelps would prefer to speak with Cooper." "Ranch's legal team. I believe they're expecting his call." Richard's face tightened. "This doesn't concern you, Cooper. My son's marriage very much concerns me, William replied evenly, as does the harassment of my daughter-in-law. The standoff continued for a tense moment before Richard nodded curtly to his lawyer. Leave. The papers. They can review them at their leisure. He focused on Samantha. Your father will be disappointed to hear about your continued poor judgment. After they left, William sighed. I apologize for the interruption. Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere more private. And William's suite offered the privacy they needed. As he made phone calls to his legal team, Samantha and James sat awkwardly in the living area. You don't have to fight this, James said finally. If you want an annulment, I won't contest it. The offer surprised her. Is that what you want? No, he admitted. But I want you to be happy, Samantha, free to make your own choices. Isn't that ironic? She said with a sad smile. I married you to escape one man's control, only to have another man trying to control me through legal maneuvers. Your father won't give up easily. I know. She twisted her wedding ring, James's mother's ring, around her finger. But neither will I. William returned, his face grave. My legal team has reviewed the situation. The petition for annulment is on shaky ground, but Harold Miller has considerable influence in this county. What do you suggest? James asked. A strategic retreat, William said. Come back to Cooper Ranch with me, both of you. To Montana? Samantha asked, surprised. William nodded. It would give you time away from your father's influence, establish the legitimacy of your marriage, and frankly, make it much harder for him to pursue legal action across state lines. James looked at Samantha. It's your decision. She considered it carefully. Leaving Willow Creek meant leaving everything she'd ever known. But staying meant continued pressure from her father and Richard. How soon can we leave? She asked. Martha cried when Samantha told her she was going to Montana. I always knew you'd fly away someday, the housekeeper said, hugging her tightly. I just didn't think it would be so soon. It's not forever, Samantha assured her, though in truth she had no idea what the future held. Just until father recovers and things settle down. Take care of Daisy for me, she added, stroking her beloved mare's nose one last time before they left. William's private plane waited at the small regional airport. As they boarded, Samantha gazed back at the rolling hills of Willow Creek, a strange mixture of sadness and anticipation filling her. Second, thoughts? James asked softly. No, she realized. Just saying goodbye to my old life. The flight to Montana took less than 2 hours, but it felt like crossing into another world. As they descended, Samantha gasped at the view from the window. Vast stretches of green pastures dotted with cattle, framed by majestic mountains in the distance. Welcome to Cooper Ranch, William said proudly as they stepped off the plane. A sleek SUV waited to drive them to the main house. Along the way, James pointed out features of the massive operation, the breeding facilities where they developed their prize-winning cattle lines, the training arenas for their quarter horses, the modern barns housing equipment worth millions. The main house itself was a stunning blend of traditional ranch style and modern luxury, a sprawling log structure, with walls of glass showcasing the mountain views. It's beautiful, Samantha breathed as they pulled up to the entrance. It's home, James said simply, and something in his voice made her wonder if he'd missed it more than he'd admitted. A housekeeper named Dorothy showed Samantha to a guest suite larger than James's entire cabin. Mr. Cooper thought you might be more comfortable with your own space while you settle in, Dorothy explained. Mr. James's room is just down the hall if you need anything. The assumption that they weren't sharing a room caught Samantha off guard, though it made sense given their unusual circumstances. Their marriage, after all, had never been consummated, had never been intended to be a real relationship. So why did the separate rooms make her feel oddly disappointed? She unpacked her meager belongings, changed clothes, and wandered out to explore. The house was impressive, but somehow still felt warm, lived in. Family photos lined the hallways, many featuring a beautiful dark-haired woman Samantha assumed was James's mother, Elizabeth. In one picture, a teenage James stood proudly beside a magnificent black stallion, his smile carefree and open in a way she'd rarely seen. My 16th birthday, James said, coming up behind her. My mother gave me that horse, Midnight. He's still in the stables. You look happy, Samantha observed. I was. His eyes lingered on his mother's face in the photo. We all were. Something in his expression tugged at Samantha's heart. You must miss her very much. Every day. James turned to her. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about all this, about who I really am. Are you? She challenged gently. Because part of me thinks you're more comfortable being the ranch hand than the ranch heir. He considered this. Maybe you're right. When I'm James Cooper, son of William, heir to all this, he gestured around them, people want things from me. They have expectations. When I'm just James, I'm free to just be. I understand that better than you might think, Samantha said. All my life, I've been Harold Miller's daughter. That came with its own weight of expectations. Their shared understanding created a moment of connection, a bridge across the hurt and mistrust of the previous day. Dinner will be ready soon, James said after a moment. My father's invited a few people, his right-hand man and his wife, the ranch manager. Nothing formal. I have nothing formal to wear anyway, Samantha said with a small smile. I packed for life in a cabin, remember? James smiled back. You look beautiful just as you are. The compliment caught her off guard, bringing a flush to her cheeks. In their 3 weeks of marriage, James had been unfailingly respectful, but never flirtatious. This felt different. Dinner was more relaxed than Samantha expected. William Cooper clearly commanded respect, but his relationship with his staff was warmer, more familial than anything she'd seen at Miller Ranch. Frank and Elaine Peterson, who had managed Cooper Ranch operations for over 20 years, treated her with genuine welcome, asking about her interests and background without prying into the circumstances of her hasty marriage. James tells me you're quite knowledgeable about horses, Frank mentioned over dessert. I grew up riding, Samantha acknowledged. I've always loved working with them. You should see our breeding program tomorrow, Elaine suggested. We've just had 3 foals born this week. I'd love that, Samantha said, realizing she meant it. Later, as James walked her to her room, a comfortable silence settled between them. At her door she hesitated. Thank you for bringing me here, she said. It can't have been easy coming back after 3 years away. It's easier with you here, James admitted, surprising them both. Good night, Samantha. She watched him walk down the hall to his own room, conflicted feelings swirling inside her. She had come to Montana to escape her father's control, to protect her marriage of convenience. She hadn't expected to feel this strange new connection to the man who was her husband, in name only. As she got ready for bed in the luxurious guest suite, Samantha realized something important. Despite the revelation of James's true identity, despite the secrets he'd kept, she felt safer with him than she ever had with anyone else. That night, she dreamed of riding across the vast Montana pastures, James by her side, both of them laughing with a freedom she'd never known before. Badisiu. Next morning, Samantha woke to a text message that shattered her newfound peace. Your father had another heart attack last night. It's serious. Come home now. Martha. She stared at the phone, guilt washing over her. Had her actions, her sudden departure, contributed to her father's condition? She found James and William having coffee on the terrace. My father's had another heart attack, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I need to go back. I'll come. With you, James said immediately. William nodded. I'll have the plane ready in an hour. As they rushed to pack, Samantha's phone rang. It was Richard Blackwell. I thought you should know, he said without preamble. The doctors don't think Harold will make it through the day. If you want to say goodbye to your father, you better hurry. Samantha felt the blood drain from her face. Despite everything, Harold was still her father. The thought of him dying while she was hundreds of miles away, angry and estranged, was unbearable. We're coming, she said. Please tell him to hold on. When she hung up, she found James watching her with concern. Ted sounds bad, he said. She nodded, fighting tears. Richard says he might not make it through the day. James pulled her into a gentle embrace. I'm so sorry, Samantha. For the first time since learning his secret, she let herself lean into his strength, accepting the comfort he offered. Whatever complications existed between them, in this moment she needed him. "We'll face this together," he promised, his lips brushing her hair. "Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." As they hurried to the waiting plane, Samantha clung to that promise. The journey back to Willow Creek loomed before them, along with whatever scheme Richard might have waiting. But with James beside her, she felt stronger, more prepared to face whatever came next. What she couldn't have prepared for was the scene that awaited them at Miller Ranch, her father lying still in his bed, Richard Blackwell sitting vigilantly at his side, and a notary with legal documents that would change everything. The scene at Miller Ranch was exactly what Samantha had feared. Her father lay pale and still in his bed, machines beeping softly beside him. Richard Blackwell sat in a chair nearby, his expression a practiced mask of concern that didn't reach his cold eyes. "You made it," Richard said, rising. "I wasn't sure. You would. How is he?" Samantha asked, moving immediately to her father's side. "Stable for now. The doctor says the next 24 hours are critical." Richard's gaze shifted to James, who stood protectively close to Samantha. "I see you brought your husband." Dr. Reynolds entered before James could respond. "Samantha, good, you're here. Your father's condition is serious, but not hopeless. The second heart attack was more severe than the first." "What are his chances?" Samantha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "If he makes it through the night, they improve significantly." The doctor checked Harold's vitals. "The most important thing is to keep his environment calm and stress-free." Richard cleared his throat. "Which is why I've taken the liberty of managing certain business matters that might be causing him anxiety." "What business matters?" James asked sharply. Richard gestured to a thin man standing quietly in the corner, the same attorney who had confronted them at the hotel restaurant. "Mr. Phelps has prepared some papers that require immediate attention." "My father is unconscious," Samantha said incredulously. "He can't sign anything." "The papers aren't for Harold." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "They're for you." Mr. Phelps stepped forward with a leather portfolio. "In the event of Mr. Miller's incapacitation, certain provisions were made. As his appointed power of attorney and business partner, Mr. Blackwell has the authority to oversee Miller Ranch operations." "Since when?" Samantha demanded. "Since last year," Richard replied smoothly. "Your father understood the importance of continuity in business matters. So, of course, as his only child, you retain inheritance rights, assuming certain conditions are met." James tensed beside her. "What conditions?" Richard motioned for the attorney to explain. "Mr. Miller recently updated his will," Mr. Phelps said, removing a document from his portfolio. "It stipulates that Samantha Miller Cooper must end her current marriage and honor the original agreement between the Miller and Blackwell families in order to maintain her inheritance." "That's ridiculous," Samantha said. "My father can't dictate who I marry." "He can't," Richard agreed, "but he can decide who inherits his estate. It's quite legal." James stepped forward, placing himself between Richard and Samantha. "When exactly was this will update made? After Harold's first heart attack?" Mr. Phelps shifted uncomfortably. "The changes were made yesterday, while he was heavily medicated and recovering from a heart attack." James shook his head. "No judge would uphold those changes." "Are you willing to take that chance?" Richard challenged. "By the time a court case concluded, Miller Ranch could be sold off piece by piece to cover legal fees." He turned to Samantha. "Is that what you want for your father's legacy? For generations of Miller work to disappear?" Samantha looked at her. "Fathers still form, torn between anger at his manipulations and worry for his health. I need time to think." "Of course," Richard said magnanimously. "But do consider signing these temporary management papers in the meantime. They simply allow day-to-day operations to continue smoothly while your father recovers." "And put you in charge," James pointed out. "Someone has to be." Richard's tone hardened. "Unless you think your new wife is qualified to make decisions about cattle futures and land management." Before Samantha could respond, Martha appeared at the door. "Dr. Reynolds needs everyone to leave. He's going to run some tests." Grateful for the interruption, Samantha squeezed her father's hand. "I'll be back soon," she whispered, unsure if he could hear her. In the hallway, James pulled her aside. Don't sign anything, he warned quietly. Not until we've had our own lawyers review the documents. I know. She leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I can't believe he'd go this far. Your father or Richard? Both of them. She closed her eyes briefly. Even on what might be his deathbed, my father is still trying to control my life. James took her hand, the gentle gesture surprising her. For what it's worth, I think your father loves you in his way. He's just never learned how to show it properly. That's generous of you, considering how he's treated you. Richard approached, interrupting their moment. Samantha, I know this is a difficult time, but these decisions can't wait. Miller Ranch needs leadership. My wife isn't making any decisions. Right now, James said firmly. Her father is critically ill. Have some decency, Blackwell. Richard's face hardened. This doesn't concern you, Cooper. My wife concerns me, James replied. The simple declaration, spoken with such conviction, sent a warm flutter through Samantha's chest despite the tense situation. Martha appeared again, her expression grave. Samantha, the doctor would like to speak with you. Alone. Heart pounding, Samantha followed Martha to a small sitting room where Dr. Reynolds waited. How bad is it? She asked immediately. Your father has stabilized, but his heart has suffered significant damage. The doctor's kind eyes held hers. He's awake now and asking for you, I should warn you. He knows his situation is precarious. Is he dying? Not immediately, but his recovery will be long and difficult if it happens at all. Dr. Reynolds squeezed her shoulder. He needs peace and rest more than anything. Whatever family or business tensions exist, they need to be put aside. Samantha nodded, trying to process the doctor's words. When she returned to her father's room, she was surprised to find Harold awake, his eyes clearer than she expected. Samantha, he said, his voice weak but determined. Come here. She approached cautiously, taking the chair beside his bed. How are you feeling? Like I've been trampled by cattle, he grimaced. The doctor doesn't think I'm going to make it. Don't say that, she protested. You're the strongest man I know. Harold's laugh turned into a cough. Strong-willed maybe. The heart's another matter. He gripped her hand with surprising strength. Richard told me you flew back from Montana. Of course I did, you're my father. After everything I've done? His eyes, so like her own, searched her face. I haven't been a good father to you, Samantha. I've been controlling, demanding. The unexpected admission startled her. Dad, let me finish. I may not get another chance. Harold shifted, wincing at the movement. When your mother died, I didn't know how to raise you alone. I focused on the ranch, on building security, on setting up a future for you the only way I knew how. By controlling every aspect of my life, Samantha said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Yes, his blunt agreement surprised her. I was wrong. Seeing you willing to marry a ranch hand rather than follow my wishes, it opened my eyes. Then learning he was James Cooper. A wry smile touched his lips. Life has a sense of humor, it seems. You're not angry about James. I'm too tired to be angry anymore. Harold's eyes drifted closed, then opened with effort. Is he good to you? The question caught her off guard. Yes, she said, realizing as she spoke that it was true. Despite the deception about his background, James had been nothing but respectful and supportive. Harold nodded. That's what matters. He squeezed her hand again. Listen to me. Richard has been pushing papers at me. Wills, contracts, power of attorney forms. Oh, you don't have to sign anything right now, Samantha assured him. I already did. Harold's expression turned grim. But not what he wanted. I signed new papers this morning with Judge Parker. He brought a different lawyer, one Richard doesn't. Control. What kind of papers? Harold's voice lowered to a whisper. I've transferred controlling interest in Miller Ranch to you, effective immediately. No conditions, no strings. Samantha stared at him in shock. But Richard says a lot of things. Harold's mouth twisted. He's been waiting to get his hands on Miller Ranch for years. I've been blind to a lot, but not to that. Before Samantha could respond, the monitors beside Harold's bed began to beep rapidly. Dr. Reynolds rushed in, followed by nurses. "Blood pressure's dropping," a nurse called out. "He's in VTASH," another shouted. "Samantha, you need to leave," Dr. Reynolds ordered, as the medical team swarmed around Harold's bed. James was waiting in the hallway and caught her as she stumbled out of the room. "What happened?" "He's crashing," she managed, clinging to James as the sounds of the medical emergency continued behind the closed door. "We were talking and then—" Her voice broke. James held her tightly, his strong arms providing the support she desperately needed. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited for news. Richard paced nearby, his expression unreadable. Finally, Dr. Reynolds emerged, his face drawn with exhaustion. "We've stabilized him again, but he's very weak. We're moving him to the ICU. Will he survive?" Samantha asked, dreading the answer. "It's touch and go," the doctor admitted. "The next 12 hours are critical." As the medical team wheeled Harold's bed toward the elevator, Samantha caught a glimpse of her father's pale face. He looked shockingly vulnerable, so different from the powerful man who had dominated her life. "I need to go with him," she said. "Only immediate family in the ICU," Dr. Reynolds reminded her. Richard stepped forward. "As Harold's business partner and legal representative." "You're not family," James interrupted firmly. Richard's eyes narrowed. "Neither are you. I'm Samantha's husband. That makes me family." James's arm tightened protectively around Samantha's waist. Dr. Reynolds intervened. "Only Samantha for now. If Harold stabilizes, we can discuss additional visitors." As they waited for Harold to be settled in the ICU, Martha brought them coffee. "You should eat something," she fretted, looking at Samantha's pale face. "You won't help your father by making yourself sick." "I'm not hungry," Samantha murmured, though she accepted the coffee gratefully. James sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "Your father is strong," he said, "like his daughter." The simple compliment brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "He told me something before he crashed," she said quietly, ensuring Richard was out of earshot. "He said he transferred controlling interest in the ranch to me, that he had Judge Parker bring a different lawyer this morning." James's eyebrows rose. "That would explain why Richard is so desperate to get you to sign his papers. If your father already transferred control, Richard's position is much weaker. But without documentation, it's my word against his." Samantha nodded toward Richard, who was speaking intently with Mr. Phelps down the hall. "Judge Parker would have records," James pointed out. "The courthouse is closed until Monday." James checked his watch. "It's nearly midnight. Why don't you go in to see your father, and I'll make some calls. My father has connections in the legal community. He might be able to get information faster." "Thank you," Samantha said, suddenly overwhelmed with gratitude for James's steady presence. On impulse, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "For everything." His surprised smile warmed something inside her. "Go be with your father," he said gently. "I'll be here when you come out." Harold looked diminished among the machines, monitoring his vital signs. Samantha sat beside his bed, holding his hand carefully to avoid disturbing the IV lines. "I'm here, Dad," she said softly. His eyelids fluttered but didn't open. A nurse checked the monitors, her expression professional but concerned. "Talk to him," she encouraged Samantha. "He might be able to hear you." So Samantha talked. She told her father about Cooper Ranch, about the beautiful Montana mountains, about the 3 new foals in the breeding program. As she spoke, she realized she was describing a place she already thought of as a potential home, a place where she'd felt free for the first time in her life. "James is different from what I thought," she confessed to her unconscious father. "Not just because of his background. He's kind and respectful. He doesn't try to control me." Harold's fingers twitched in hers. "Dad?" She leaned closer. "Can you hear me?" His eyes opened slightly, unfocused at first, then finding her face. "Samantha," he whispered, the word barely audible over the beeping machines. "I'm right here," she assured him. "Try to rest." He frowned, struggling to speak. "Papers. Safe." "What papers?" she asked, leaning closer. "Office safe. Behind portrait." His eyes drifted closed again as fatigue overtook him. The nurse approached. "He needs to rest now. You can come back in a few hours." Reluctantly, Samantha left the ICU. She found James in the waiting area, speaking quietly on his phone. He ended the call when he saw her. "How is he?" James asked, standing. "Conscious," briefly. She relayed Harold's cryptic message about papers in the office safe. James's expression turned thoughtful. "Your father's office at the ranch?" "It has to be." Samantha checked her watch. "It's after midnight, but Martha will let us in." Richard intercepted them as they headed for the elevator. "Where are you going?" "To get some air," James replied smoothly. "Samantha needs a break." Richard's eyes narrowed. Now isn't the time to be leaving. What if Harold's condition changes? "The doctors have my number," Samantha said firmly. "We won't be gone long." Richard looked like he wanted to object further but seemed to think better of it. "I'll be here," he said, the word sounding more like a threat than an assurance. Once they were in James's truck, Samantha felt tension draining from her shoulders. "He's planning something," she said. "Richard?" "Almost certainly." James navigated the dark country roads toward Miller Ranch. "But if your father really did transfer control to you, Richard's options are limited, unless he destroys the documentation before we find it," Samantha pointed out. The ranch house was mostly dark when they arrived, but lights burned in the kitchen where Martha waited. The housekeeper hugged Samantha tightly. "How is he?" Martha asked. "Holding." "On," Samantha replied. "Martha, we need to get into my father's office." The housekeeper's eyebrows rose. "At this hour? Why?" "He said something about papers in his safe that I need to find." Martha nodded in understanding. "Behind Elizabeth's portrait." She led them down the hall to Harold's office. "That's the only safe I know about." The portrait Martha indicated showed a beautiful young woman with Samantha's eyes, her mother, Elizabeth, who had died when Samantha was 21. James helped carefully remove the heavy frame, revealing a wall safe with a digital keypad. "Do you know the combination?" James asked. Samantha shook her head. "He never shared it with me." Martha hesitated. "He used your mother's birthday for most passwords. Try 041558. Samantha entered the numbers with trembling fingers. The safe remained locked. She tried her own birthday next, then her parents' anniversary date. Nothing worked. "Think, Samantha," James encouraged. "What date would be significant?" "To your father." She closed her eyes, trying to put herself in Harold's mindset. What date would he use that wasn't obvious? Suddenly she remembered something. The day her father had purchased the original Miller homestead. An anniversary he marked each year with a special dinner. 7/12/82, she said, entering the numbers. The safe beeped and the door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, a velvet jewelry box, and a sealed envelope with Samantha written on it in her father's bold handwriting. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope and found a letter and a legal document. The letter was brief but striking. "Samantha, if you're reading this, I may be gone. I've made many mistakes in my life, but the worst was trying to control yours. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only protecting myself from the fear of losing you like I lost your mother. The enclosed document transfers full ownership and control of Miller Ranch to you, effective immediately. No conditions, no strings attached. It is notarized and legally binding. Richard Blackwell has been pressuring me to sell him controlling interest for years. I refused, but he's a dangerous man when crossed. Be careful. Whatever path you choose, with James Cooper or on your own, know that I am proud of you for having the courage I lacked, the courage to follow your heart. Love." Dad tears blurred Samantha's vision as she passed the letter to James. The legal document was exactly what Harold had described, a transfer of ownership signed by Harold, Judge Parker, and 2 witnesses, dated that very morning. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew he might not survive, so he made sure." James finished reading the letter, his expression solemn. "Your father loves you, Samantha. In his own way, he's trying to make amends." Martha, who had been keeping watch, at the door suddenly tensed. "There's a car coming up the drive." James moved to the window. "It's Richard." He turned to Samantha. "We need to get these papers somewhere safe now." "He can't take them by force," Samantha protested. "Are you sure? The man's desperate and used to getting his way." James gathered the documents. "Martha, is there a back way out?" The housekeeper nodded. "Through the kitchen and past the herb garden. My car is parked by the greenhouse. Go, James urged Samantha. Take these to Judge Parker's house. He knows the situation and can keep them secure until banks open on Monday. What about you? Samantha asked, suddenly afraid to leave him. I'll delay Richard. James's expression was determined. Martha and I can handle him. James, he's dangerous. So, am I when someone threatens my wife? The fierce protectiveness in his eyes stole Samantha's breath. He pressed a quick kiss to her forehead. Go, I'll meet you at the hospital later. Reluctantly, Samantha slipped out the back with the documents, while Martha greeted Richard at the front door. As she drove Martha's old sedan down the service road that circled behind the main ranch buildings, she caught glimpses of raised voices through the windows. The sight of James standing tall against Richard, defending her interests, stirred something powerful in her heart. It was more than gratitude, more than respect. As she drove through the night toward Judge Parker's house, Samantha finally admitted to herself what she'd been feeling for days. She was falling in love with her husband of convenience. So Judge Parker, despite being awakened in the middle of the night, welcomed Samantha warmly. His wife made tea while the judge reviewed the documents. These are in perfect order, he confirmed. I was there when Harold signed them. He was clear-headed and absolutely certain about his decision. The judge locked the papers in his home office safe. I'll file them officially first thing Monday morning. Richard Blackwell will fight this, Samantha warned. Let him try, Judge Parker said with confidence. The law is on your side, Samantha, and for what it's worth, I think your father finally did right by you. When she returned to the hospital shortly before dawn, Samantha found James in the ICU waiting room, sporting a bruised jaw, but otherwise intact. What happened? She gasped, touching his face gently. Richard took exception to being asked to leave the ranch, James said with a wry smile. He took a swing I ducked too slowly. Did he hurt you anywhere else? Only my pride. James caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. The papers. Safe with Judge Parker. Relief made her knees weak, and she sank into the chair beside him. I can't believe my father did this. People can surprise you, James said. Sometimes they even surprise themselves. A doctor Samantha didn't recognize approached them. Mrs. Cooper, I'm Dr. Mitchell, the cardiologist on call. Your father is asking for you both. Surprised, Samantha and James followed the doctor to Harold's room. Her father looked marginally better. Some color returned to his face, though the oxygen mask and multiple IVs indicated his condition remained serious. Harold's eyes focused on them as they entered. He beckoned weakly and Samantha moved to his side. You found it? He asked, his voice muffled by the mask. Yes. It's safe with Judge Parker. She squeezed his hand gently. Thank you, Dad. Harold nodded, then shifted his gaze to James. Cooper. James stepped forward. Sir, take care of her. The simple request carried the weight of a father's love and worry. I will, James promised. You have my word. Something passed between the two men, understanding, perhaps, or grudging respect. Harold seemed satisfied with James's response, his eyes drifting closed again. He needs rest, Dr. Mitchell said quietly. But his vital signs have improved overnight. He's not out of the woods, but there's reason for cautious optimism. In the hallway outside the ICU, Samantha turned to James. Did you mean what you said about taking care of me? James's expression was serious. Every word. But Samantha, taking care of you doesn't mean controlling you. It means supporting you, standing beside you, helping when you need it, and stepping back when you don't. The distinction, so different from her father's approach or Richard's possessiveness, touched her deeply. That's what a real partnership is, isn't it? Yes. James hesitated, then took her hands in his. Our marriage may have started as a convenience, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Samantha's heart quickened. What are you saying? James, I'm saying I'd like to try for real. His eyes held hers, vulnerable yet steady. These past weeks, getting to know you, seeing your strength and kindness, I've developed feelings for you, Samantha. Real feelings. The admission, so heartfelt and honest, left her momentarily speechless. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted down the hall. You can't stop me from seeing him. Richard's voice rang out. "I have power of attorney." "Not anymore, you don't," replied Dr. Mitchell firmly. "Mr. Miller was very clear about his wishes this morning." Richard spotted Samantha and James, his face contorting with fury. "You!" He stormed toward them. "What did you do? What lies did you tell Harold?" "The only person telling lies is you, Richard." Samantha stood her ground, James beside her. "My father transferred control of Miller Ranch to me, notarized and witnessed." "Impossible." Richard's face paled. "He signed papers giving me temporary management authority at most," James interrupted. "Not ownership." Richard's eyes darted between them, calculating. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Harold is confused, medicated. Any agreements he made in this condition won't hold up in court." "Judge Parker disagrees," Samantha replied calmly. "Now I think you should leave before security escorts you out." For a moment, Richard looked as though he might lunge at them. Then, gaining control of himself, he straightened his jacket. "You've made a powerful enemy today, Samantha. Both of you have." "Better an enemy than a puppet," she replied. After Richard stormed off, Samantha turned back to James, suddenly remembering the conversation his outburst had interrupted. "You were saying something important." James smiled, a tender expression that made her heart flutter. "I was saying that I have feelings for you." "I have feelings for you too," she admitted. "But I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of trading one cage for another." She looked away. "I've never been truly independent, James. I went from my father's control to our marriage of convenience. I need to know who I am on my own terms before I can be someone's wife for real." Instead of disappointment, understanding filled James's eyes. "I respect that," he said. "In fact, it's one of the reasons I'm falling for you. Your desire to stand on your own." Relief washed through her. "So you're not upset?" "How could I be upset about the woman I care for wanting to grow stronger?" He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Take all the time you need, Samantha. I'll be here when you're ready, if you decide that's what you want." In that moment, with her father fighting for his life and Richard plotting his revenge, Samantha felt surprisingly at peace. For the first time, she was making choices based on her own needs, supported by a man who respected her enough to give her space to find herself. As the sun rose outside the hospital windows, casting golden light across James's face, Samantha realized something important. Love wasn't about possession or control. Real love was about freedom, support, and standing together against whatever storms might come. And there were definitely storms on the horizon, if Richard Blackwell's threats were any indication. 3 months passed in a blur of hospital visits, legal meetings, and long days working alongside the Miller Ranch staff. Harold's recovery was slow but steady. He'd survived the worst of his heart attack, but remained weak, needing specialized care at a rehabilitation facility outside of Willow Creek. For Samantha, these months had been transformative. With James's encouragement, she had taken charge of Miller Ranch operations, discovering strengths she never knew she possessed. The ranch hands, many of whom had known her since childhood, readily accepted her leadership, especially when they saw the changes she implemented to improve working conditions and modernize outdated practices. James had returned to Montana 2 weeks after Harold stabilized. His father needed him at Cooper Ranch, and Samantha needed space to find her footing as the head of Miller Ranch. Their parting at the small regional airport had been bittersweet. "This doesn't feel like goodbye," James had said, his hand warm against her cheek. "It's not," Samantha had assured him. "It's just pause." They spoke daily by phone or video chat, sometimes discussing ranch business, sometimes simply sharing the events of their days. Though physically apart, Samantha felt closer to James than ever, their relationship deepening in ways she hadn't expected. Today, she drove the familiar road to the rehabilitation facility, a stack of papers on the passenger seat of her truck. Judge Parker had finalized the last of the legal battles with Richard Blackwell the previous day, and she was eager to share the news with her father. Harold sat in a recliner by the window of his private room, a book open on his lap. Though thinner than before, with more grey in his hair, he looked more at peace than Samantha could remember seeing him in years. "There's my girl," he said with a smile that still took her by surprise. The gruff, demanding father had given way to a more reflective, gentler man during his recovery. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, kissing his cheek before settling into the chair beside him. "Better. Doctor says I might be able to come home next month if I keep improving." "That's wonderful news, Dad." Samantha couldn't hide her delight. Though their relationship had been strained for so long, these months of vulnerability had allowed them to forge a new connection, one based on mutual respect rather than control. "How's the ranch?" Harold asked, his interest genuine rather than critical. "That's actually why I'm here earlier than usual." Samantha handed him the papers she'd brought. "Judge Parker called yesterday. Richard's last appeal was denied. Miller Ranch is officially indisputably ours." Harold reviewed the documents, satisfaction spreading across his face. He never knew when to quit that one, too greedy for his own good. "He almost succeeded," Samantha reminded him. "If you hadn't signed those transfer papers when you did..." "Best decision I ever made." Harold set the papers aside. "Second best, actually." "What was the first?" "Not interfering when you married James Cooper." Harold's admission came easily, another sign of how much he'd changed. "You chose better for yourself than I ever would have for you." Samantha smiled, her thoughts turning to James as they often did. "We started off on such strange footing, a marriage of convenience that became..." She trailed off, still working through her complicated feelings. "That became love," Harold suggested gently. "Yes," she acknowledged, "at least on my part." "From what I've seen, the feeling is mutual." Harold studied her face. "You haven't told him, have you?" "Not in so many words," Samantha sighed. "We agreed I needed time to find myself, to be independent before we decided if our marriage would be real." "And have you found yourself?" The question made her pause. These past months had been challenging but rewarding. She'd learned to trust her instincts, to make decisions without seeking approval, to stand on her own even when it was difficult. She'd rebuilt Miller Ranch according to her own vision, winning the respect of everyone from the ranch hands to the local business community. "I think I have," she said finally. "I'm not the same woman who fled from Richard Blackwell by marrying a stranger." "No, you're not," Harold agreed with unmistakable pride. "You're stronger now. More like your mother than I ever gave you credit for." Before Samantha could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. "It's Martha," she said, reading it quickly. "Richard Blackwell was just at the ranch demanding to see me. He seemed agitated." Harold frowned. "Be careful, Samantha. Richard doesn't take defeat well. I can handle Richard." She stood, gathering her things. "I need to get back, but I'll visit again tomorrow, okay?" "Bring James next time," Harold suggested. "If he's back from Montana, that is." Samantha paused. "How did you know he was coming back?" Harold smiled mysteriously. "We old men have our ways." Tasked him with a drive back to Miller Ranch gave Samantha time to think about James's impending return. He'd called the night before to say he'd be arriving the next day, for a visit he'd emphasized, not to pressure her. 3 months had given them both perspective, he'd said. He missed her, but he respected her need for space. What James didn't know was that Samantha had made her decision. These months apart had shown her that independence didn't mean being alone. It meant being strong enough to choose connection from a place of wholeness, not need. As she pulled up to the main house, she spotted Richard's expensive car parked haphazardly near the front steps. Taking a deep breath, she prepared herself for another confrontation. Martha met her at the door, worry creasing her kind face. "He's in the study, Miss Samantha. He wouldn't leave, just kept saying he had important business with you." "It's all right, Martha, I'll handle him." Richard paced the study like a caged animal, his normally immaculate appearance somewhat disheveled. When Samantha entered, he spun to face her. "Finally," he snapped. "Do you know how long I've been waiting?" "I was visiting my father," Samantha replied calmly. "What's so urgent, Richard? The courts have ruled. There's nothing left to discuss." "There's always something to discuss." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Especially between old friends. We were never friends. No, well, maybe we could be more." Richard moved closer, his intention clear. Your father and I had the right idea, Samantha. Merging our lands, our lives. It makes perfect sense. Not to me. Samantha held her ground. And the courts agree. Now, I think you should leave. Richard's face hardened. You think you've won, don't you? The Princess of Miller Ranch, playing at being a businesswoman. I'm not playing at anything, Richard. I own this ranch, I run this ranch, and I'm asking you to leave. Your marriage to Cooper was a sham, Richard pressed on. A convenient escape. That served its purpose. He's in Montana, you're here. It's time to be realistic about your future. My future is my own to decide, Samantha replied, moving toward the door to signal the end of the conversation. And it doesn't include you. Richard grabbed her arm, his grip tight enough to hurt. You're making a mistake. I could make things very difficult for you. Let go of me, Samantha said, her voice low but firm. Not until you listen to reason. I believe my wife asked you to let go. James's voice from the doorway sent relief coursing through Samantha. He stood there, travel-worn but magnificent in his quiet strength, his eyes fixed on Richard's hand, gripping Samantha's arm. Richard released her immediately, taking a step back. Cooper. Back from playing cowboy in Montana. I'm back for good, actually. James moved to Samantha's side, his hand gently touching the small of her back. Are you okay? I am now, she said, meaning it completely. Richard looked between them, calculation replacing his initial surprise. How touching. The prodigal husband returns. Does he know how well you've managed without him, Samantha? How independent you've become? That was the point, James replied before Samantha could. Independence isn't a threat to our marriage, it's the foundation of it. The simple statement, so at odds with the controlling men Samantha had known all her life, reinforced everything she loved about James. Richard, seeing the united front before him, attempted a new tactic. Cooper Ranch must be quite the operation, he said, his tone suddenly conversational. Surely it needs your full attention, and Miller Ranch obviously has capable management now. Perhaps a long-distance arrangement would be best for everyone. Or perhaps, James suggested mildly, you should stop trying to manipulate a situation. That doesn't concern you. Richard's friendly facade dropped. This isn't over, he warned. Actually, it is. Samantha opened the study door wider. Goodbye, Richard. For a moment, it seemed Richard might refuse to leave. Then, straightening his jacket, he strode out without another word. They heard his car engine roar to life moments later, gravel, spraying as he drove away too fast. Alone at last, Samantha turned to James. You're early. I couldn't wait another day. His smile was tentative. I hope that's okay. Instead of answering, Samantha stepped into his arms, embracing him with all the feelings she'd held back for months. James responded immediately, holding her as if she were precious, his face buried in her hair. I've missed you, he murmured. So much. I've missed you too. She drew back enough to see his face. I've learned a lot about myself while you were gone. Tell me everything, James said, leading her to the comfortable sofa near the fireplace. I want to know it all. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, Samantha told James about the challenges she'd faced running Miller Ranch, the lessons she'd learned, the confidence she'd gained. He listened attentively, asking questions, offering observations, but never once suggesting she should have done things differently. You're amazing, he said when she'd finished. I always knew you were strong, but seeing you like this, in your power, confident, it's incredible. I couldn't have done it without your support, Samantha admitted. Knowing you believed in me, even from a distance, made all the difference. James took her hands in his. I have news too, he said. I've worked things out with my father. I'm going to split my time between Cooper Ranch and a new project here in Willow Creek. What new project? A horse breeding program. James's eyes gleamed with excitement. Starting with some of Cooper Ranch's best bloodlines, but focusing on developing new lines suited specifically for this region. Samantha's heart skipped. That's been my dream for years. I know. James squeezed her hands. My father is funding it as a joint venture between our ranches. If you're interested, that is. If I'm interested, James, that's perfect. The possibilities raced through her mind. her knowledge of local conditions combined with Cooper Ranch's renowned breeding expertise. But where would this program be based? That's the other part of my news. James looked suddenly nervous. I bought the old Henderson property that borders the north pasture. You bought it? Samantha was stunned. Richard had planned to purchase that land as a wedding gift months ago, before everything changed. It was for sale and the location is ideal for what we want to do. James watched her carefully. I know I should have discussed it with you first, but I wanted it to be a surprise. It's a wonderful surprise, she assured him. But James, that property is expensive. Worth every penny if it means I can be near you. His expression grew serious. Samantha, these months apart have shown me what I suspected all along, that what started as a marriage of convenience has become the most important relationship in my life. The simple honesty of his declaration touched her deeply. For me too, she admitted. I don't want to pressure you, James continued. If you need more time, I don't. Samantha's certainty surprised even herself. I've had time, James. I've found my strength, my independence, and what I've discovered is that I want to share my life with you, not because I need you, but because I choose you. The joy that spread across James's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I love you, James Cooper. Saying the words aloud felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I love the man who married me to save me, who gave me space to grow, who came back not to claim me, but to partner with me. I love you too, Samantha. James cupped her face gently. I have for longer than I even realized. When I left for Montana, it felt like leaving a part of myself behind. As James leaned in to kiss her, a real kiss, their first as a couple, truly in love. Samantha felt the final pieces of her heart slide into place. This wasn't the ending of her journey toward independence. It was the beginning of something even more beautiful, a partnership of equals. 2 weeks later, Samantha stood on the porch of the Henderson property, now Cooper Homestead, as James had officially named it. Workers moved busily around the grounds, renovating the old house and building new stable facilities according to their joint vision. It's really happening, she said, as James joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. Thanks to you, he pressed, a kiss to her temple. Your designs for the breeding program are brilliant. Our designs, she corrected. This is a partnership, remember? James smiled. Speaking of partnership, I have something for you. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Samantha's heart fluttered as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. I know we're already married, James said softly, but that was for all the wrong reasons. I want us to have a symbol of what we've become, what we've chosen together. Tears welled in Samantha's eyes as he slipped the ring beside her simple wedding band. It's beautiful. Not as beautiful as you. James kissed her gently. And not nearly as precious as what we've found together. A truck coming up the drive interrupted their moment. William Cooper stepped out, followed by Harold in a wheelchair. His first outing since being released from the rehabilitation facility the day before. Well, don't you two look cozy? Harold called out, his gruff tone belied by the smile on his face. Dad, you didn't tell me you were coming out today. Samantha hurried down the steps to greet them. William insisted, Harold said. Wanted me to see what you two have been planning. As the men toured the property, discussing the improvements and future plans, Samantha marveled at how much had changed. Harold and William, once business rivals, now conversed like old friends. Her father, who had once tried to control every aspect of her life, now listened with genuine interest to her ideas. And James, the man she'd married out of desperation, had become her true partner in every sense of the word. Later that evening, after their fathers had departed, Samantha and James sat on the porch swing of Cooper Homestead, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. In a week, they would host a small renewal ceremony here, celebrating their marriage not as an escape but as a choice made from love. Happy? James asked, his arm around her. Shoulders. More than I ever thought possible, Samantha replied honestly. From inside, they could hear the construction crew packing up for the day. Soon, this house would be their home, the center of their joint vision for the future. A future. Neither of them could have imagined that desperate night in the stables when Samantha had sought escape and James had offered salvation. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Marrying me that day when we barely knew each other?" James considered the question thoughtfully. "No," he said finally. "It may have started for all the wrong reasons, but it led us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." "Me too," Samantha whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. As the last rays of sunlight faded, casting long shadows across the land that would nurture their dreams, Samantha reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She had fled her father's control, only to discover that true freedom wasn't about escaping. It was about choosing your own path, your own partnerships, your own love. And in James Cooper, once a secret millionaire pretending to be a poor ranch hand, she had found someone who valued that freedom as much as she did. Someone who understood that love wasn't about possession, but about growth. Someone who saw her strength as beautiful rather than threatening. "What are you thinking about?" James asked, his voice soft in the gathering twilight. "About how sometimes," Samantha replied, "the best secrets are the ones worth keeping, like a handsome ranch hand who turns out to be so much more than he seems." James laughed, the sound warm and rich in the evening air. "And sometimes," he added, "the best journeys start with a desperate escape." As stars began to appear overhead, they sat together in comfortable silence, two people who had found in each other not just love, but the rarest gift of all, the freedom to be fully themselves together. The end.